question. You know, Samke, most people would have, well, I don't want to say most women, but many women in your position and many men in your position where there's this real imbalance in power would have said, it's never that serious, let me just stay.
But I did stay for so long. A lot of people think that I just woke up and left. My marriage ended long before I decided to leave. And I tried negotiating, and you can negotiate. I advocate for people to negotiate for a favorable and a fair and equitable balance of power in a relationship, whether that's a personal relationship, whether that's a professional relationship in your workplace. Have a fair and equitable balance of power. So I did try negotiating for a long time. I hate divorce. I despise divorce. But I felt I wasn't allowed to be me. I was being pushed to play the role of some predetermined wife with some predetermined tick boxes, and wasn't what I was. And I remember even journaling that I've decided to leave my marriage because I've realized I will never be the wife he wants me to be. And that's why our relationship was so turbulent, because I would try fit into this box, but obviously human nature says what? You always revert to what you truly are. And that's why even we'd split before, and when we made up, he tried to be what I wanted him to be, but he reverted to his default setting.
So, you know, what's scary about this conversation is that very often, in a bid to ensure that you know, if anything were to happen, not just divorce, but anything that would substantively change the nature of the relationship in terms of power, whether it's a death, you know, of one of the spouses, whether it's a job loss, whether one person decides to start a business and the other one has to support them for some time, whatever the change is, that you have, you've worked out something that is fair to both of you. And I'm hearing fair for one is not necessarily fair for the other. Defined for one is not necessarily defined for the other. Is there actually practically, looking back now on your experience and similar experiences that you've heard, is there actually practically a way in which you can achieve this equilibrium without turbulence?
I think first of all, you need to know who you are and where you're going, right? Because what I realized is that I think my ex-husband had a trajectory in terms of my career path and my growth, and said I can live with that. And I think back to some of our varsity conversations where he'd tell his friends that he would never be in a relationship with a woman that could potentially make more money than him. At the time, I thought he was joking, but that was his philosophy. That was the essence of who he was. And make more money than him, I think, was also proxy for have a bigger profile than him, have more power than him, more influence than him. And that's where my career was headed.
Samke, what are some of the lessons that you've taken away from this that you teach others? Because you share very freely, not just your story, but also the lessons that people can take away, men and women, that will help them financially first, emotionally, and in terms of relationships. And then we'll look at financially. What are some of the lessons?
So it's so intertwined, Renee, because your finances are basically a symptom of the underlying emotional and psychological causes, right? And that's why I went into wealth coaching and looked at it from a financial wellness perspective. Because when I started asking, why are you spending the money the way you're doing? Why is your financial philosophy X or Y? I realized it was a number of reasons. Like, I need people to see that I'm successful. I need to take care of my parents because they sacrificed for me. I need to show my wife that I can provide. You know, the reasons for financial behavior are very rarely financial. If we look at the emotional and psychological tips I would give people, I would say first and foremost, you need to be authentic with who you are and where you are as a starting point. And that's sometimes very difficult. But once you've done that, be authentic about where you want to go and what it'll take to get there. It becomes so much easier to stick to financial goals, to alter or adjust your financial habits towards your goals, as opposed to where you are. Any financial transaction shouldn't be resentful. It shouldn't be resentful.
I love the other thing that you talk about very much, Samke, which is being glam in the hustle. Let's talk a little bit about that, because, you know, you did come from this amazing, incredible, you know, jet set lifestyle.
Yes.
And you did go to a place where that was no longer available to you, and then had to redefine and rebuild what was authentic about you.
So I talk about wearing faded blacks, So my gran, who raised me, was very glamorous. And, when it's church time, when it's work time, whatever the case is, you always have to look pristine. So she would always preach that you can't wear faded blacks, right? It was something I grew up with. And I came to a point in my life where I had to wear faded black. So being glam while on the hustle for me was more around who I am. What value do I add? As opposed to how I look or what car I'm driving or what bag I'm putting on the table when I come to sit with you at a meeting. So for me, it was around focusing on the content, focusing on building the profile. All these other things follow. So as the world shifts, barriers are actually being broken down in terms of the wealth we can create for ourselves. It's easier to create wealth. And I'd like to also just challenge us in terms of how we do that now that the digital economy has opened up a space for everyone to be an influencer and to attach value to themselves.
Finally, Samke, you're a member of the Gracia Machel Trust Women Advancing Africa. And what do you hear when you hear Women Advancing Africa? And how do you translate that personally and link it with who you are and what it is that you do?
That's very close to my heart. I link it as the second liberation. I think Mama did call it as well, the second liberation, because we've been politically and to some extent economically liberated as a people. But we thought that that liberation would flow down in equal measure to us as women as it did for men. And if you look at gender income levels, disparities, if you look at women sitting in senior positions in companies, if you look at even media coverage, thanks to the study Valentine did that highlighted to me how disproportionate coverage is for women and women in business, it just says to me, we cannot wait for the liberator to liberate the oppressed. It never has happened anywhere in history. And also, we're bringing it back to the status quo in my ex-marital home. My ex was not uncomfortable, therefore he had no need to change the status quo. A lot of men aren't uncomfortable with the current status quo, therefore they have no need to change it. We are the ones that are uncomfortable. We are the ones that will need to change it. And that's what Women Advancing Africa is to me. Where we're saying we're not waiting for external donors, we're not waiting for some big media coverage story. We are going to change the narrative ourselves. We are going to discuss those things that were previously thought shouldn't be discussed. We're going to talk about divorce. We're going to talk about, a Joburg it girl went from driving a Porsche into the bank to driving a Polo and how her colleagues looked at her like shame.
What's changed about the Samke from before and the Samke sat in front of me in terms of mind? What are the three things that changed the most that you would leave us with?
One, I believe I am more powerful than I imagine. And by more powerful, I don't mean more powerful in my own personal capacity, but in terms of the collective I can mobilize. Number two, what's changed in me is that I'm not defined by materials anymore. I'm defined by what value I add as opposed to what I have. And number three, I think it may seem a bit airy-fairy, but I think the universe and God will always restore to you what is due to you. I think fabulous for me now is just my aura. I keep telling my friends, I would speak like this. I would say darling in a taxi. Literally taking, I don't know what you guys call them, those taxis, 15
matatus.
For
yes,
matatus. Honey, handing you your change. I would still be fabulous because I realized it's who I am, it comes from me. And that's why I say it's so important to understand who you are, where you are, and where you want to be. Another one of my most favorite quotes is, where you are from is not where you belong. You belong where you believe you belong. I believe that I am a fabulous, darling diva that believes that there's space for everyone to compete and create and live their best lives. And I don't apologize for that at all.
She not only creates well, she drops the lines like it's hot. Samke Mhlongo. No?
Sizzle.
Oh, I've got to sizzle.
Just call me Sam. It's fine. Just call me Sam. It's cool.
At least Samke.
Samke, yes. But my friends call me Sam.
Thank you for
it's like
coming
my,
into the studio.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. This is a dream come true.
And thank you for watching.